Hey students, it's Mr. Ross. I'm here in my craft room, and today we are going to spend some time learning about a different kind of inheritance than what you guys have already seen. So, what we're going to do is we're going to review what we already know about something called Mendelian inheritance, which is just the regular dominant recessive. And then we're going to look at situations where actually there's two things that are dominant at the same time, and this is called codominance. So, by the end of this lesson, you should be able to predict what the phenotype, what it's going to look like, is of something that has both traits that are codominant. You're going to also be able to just understand how codominants work, and then we're going to look at just a couple different examples from nature. You guys will watch a different video that'll talk about how we do the Punnett square crosses for these things. The last thing is we will talk a little bit about the alleles and what we write those alleles as when we're writing them on our paper. So let's jump into this. Okay, so this is one of the gizmos that we've already played with before. Mouse genetics, two traits. We have two different traits on here. We have fur color, and then we have eye color. And we saw that when you take two black mice and you breed them together, they're all going to end up with black fur. When you take a look at their eye color, black eyes and red eyes actually gives you all black-eyed mice. Now, when we breed them together again for these babies, which again, they had black fur alleles and they had some alleles for red eye color as well. Most of them are going to be black eyes, black fur, but some of them are black fur and red eyes. So what we determined was that black eyes and black fur were both dominant, and that the red eyes, at least, were recessive. When we tried taking black fur and white fur, however, and we bred them together, make a prediction on what's going to happen, since we just said black is going to be dominant here. So make a prediction. Now, when we breed them together, yeah, every single one of them has black fur color. When we take those babies, which had a black fur color allele, and they also had white fur color allele, and we take those babies and we breed them together, so they had one black and one white allele, we knew that we were going to get mostly what color and a few of what other color. And when we do it, we see that we have mostly black fur color and some white fur color. What we saw was white was recessive and black was dominant. Last thing here, when you take white and white, make a prediction. What are we going to get? Yeah, you guessed it, all white in this case, okay? So this is the normal inheritance pattern. This is what we call Mendelian genetics. This one's pretty clear, okay? However, we should take a look at some other examples, because sometimes you don't just have one trait or the other. Sometimes you have both at one time. This is actually called codominance. So when you looked at the cow at the beginning of this video, or this particular antelope, they actually have multiple colors at the same time. So this one actually has black, and it also has that orangey red color. These are both showing up at the same time. So neither one of these is recessive. All right, so we're going to take a look at a different organism than we've already looked at. We've looked at the mice. Let's breed these chickens together. So when you take two black mice and you breed them together, you both get black mice, or at least when they're purebred. If they were heterozygous mice, then you get something a little bit different. But when you take two red chickens, pure chickens, what do you think you're going to get? Make a prediction. Now breed them. Yep, every single one of them's red. Probably not a big surprise. Same thing with the white. When you breed two white pure chickens together, what do you think you're going to get? Make a prediction. And you get all white chickens. So not a surprise so far. But like we did, we want to do one of each. We did that with the mice. Now let's do it with the chickens. What do you think you'll get when you breed one of each of these? Breed them. Actually, make a prediction. And now breed them. And this is a little bit different. So when you look at it, all of these chicken babies have kind of half red and half white feathers. It's not a mixture of the two. It's not like light orangey or, anything weird like that. It's some purely red feathers and some purely white feathers. These traits, where both traits show up at the same time, fully expressed, these are called codominant traits. What that means is that you have two traits or more that are not recessive to one another, and so they can't cover each other up and they can't be covered up. So when you say codominant, co means together, dominant. So co-dominant, they're dominant together. They can't have anything that covers them up right now. Um, let's take two of these chickens though. And just to kind of remind you, they would have gotten a red allele and they would have gotten a white allele. So when we look at their genotypes, I'm going to show genotype. They have a red and a white allele. We'll talk about the alleles here in a second. But if we breed them together, what do you think we could possibly get for our phenotypes? So make a prediction. Now breed them. This is a little bit different. When we bred the mice together and we had heterozygous mice, we got some white mice, we got some red or some black mice. But this one, you actually have three options. You have white, you have red, and you have the ones that are red and white at the same time. So this is actually one of the cool things about codominance. When you look at the phenotype, you automatically know what the genotype of that organism is. So these red ones, I know for a fact they're going to have red alleles, two red alleles. The white ones, if I click on it, it's going to say two white alleles. Let's take a look. Yeah, I was right. And then when you click on the heterozygous chickens, the ones that are red and white, they're going to have a red and white allele. Let's do that real quick. Yay, I was right. So this one is really cool because, again, you can tell what their genotype is just by looking at them. In the previous examples of Mendelian genetics, you can't always tell because the heterozygous and the homozygous dominant, they look the exact same. So you can't always tell. You need a pedigree for that. Okay. All right. So when we look at these codominant traits, there's a couple of differences here because we said there's two dominant alleles. When we did dominant alleles in the past, you had like the same letter. Uppercase was dominant, the lowercase was the recessive, and it was kind of easy to tell what the differences were. So we have to have a different thing because it gets confusing. If you had two capital letters that were the exact same letter, you'd never know what was what. So there's really two ways to do codominant alleles. So with that example we just saw, we could do it like the gizmo shows us, which is capital F for, that's the trait, feather color. And we have a superscript letter for whichever allele it is, and it's capitalized too because, again, this is codominant trait. So we had F sub R, that would, or superscript R, that would be red feathers. We could also have F superscript W, and that would be white feathers. Okay? So when we looked at them, you could, if you had FR, FR, okay? So this is an allele, and this is an allele. Those are the two alleles for the individual. If they have two F superscript Rs, this thing would be red. If they were, sorry, they were F big W, F big W, it would be what color? White. Okay. But what if we have one of each? What if we're the heterozygous individual? F big R, F big W. What is this chicken going to look like? It's going to actually be, guess, red and white at the same time. Okay, both colors showing up there. So you guys would have, you know, this chicken that is running around with, and I'm going to draw my ugliest chicken. That is the ugliest chicken. That looks like a stork or a swan or something, whatever. It would have some red patches, and it would also have some white, okay? Sorry, maybe if I give it like a turkey gobbler. Oh, that's even worse. I'm so embarrassed. But you guys would have some kind of chicken that was both colors at the same time. The other way to do the alleles is, if you want to, you could just skip the whole F thing and you could just do R and W. So it is also acceptable to do RW or big R, or big W, big W. Again, this one would be white. This one would be red. This one would be red and white at the same time. So now this will be just kind of like a little fun activity for you to see the difference between codominance and Mendelian genetics. We're going to take a couple examples, just three, and we're going to look at them. What would a heterozygous individual look like if they had codominance versus if they were just the normal Mendelian pattern? So let's take a look at some bugs, and we're going to have little ladybugs. Maybe those look more like ticks. I don't know. And there's two alleles, long legs and then short legs. Okay. And we're going to say in this that they are, a normal Mendelian pattern. Okay. So there's a dominant and there's a recessive. And we'll just say this one's dominant. So long legs are dominant. And this one's recessive. If it was normal Mendelian genetics, if we have one allele for the long legs and one allele for the short legs, and they mated, okay, and they made a baby, the baby is going to have one long leg allele and one short leg allele. And what's it going to end up with? Well, it's going to end up with long legs. Those may be too longer than the parents were. So that's kind of how that would show up if it was normal dominant recessive, okay? But if we take the same trait and we made it a codominant trait instead, okay? Give them their antenna so they can find their way around. Long, short. If they made a baby, and again, this one, because it's codominant, we're going to use a different letter, so we'll say short. If they made a baby, their baby is going to have one long allele and one short allele. And so what's it going to look like? Take a guess. Hopefully you guessed that it's going to have some long legs and some short legs at the same time. Now, that would be kind of weird, but things like that are possible. And this is just an example, okay? Other examples. If you took the idea of, say, eyelashes in a human, if you had E for eyelashes, and we'll say dominant is short eyelashes, okay? And then the recessive is just normal eyelashes, short. I got to write it over here. And then we'll say the recessive is long. And then you bred them together, they would make a kid that was big E, little e. And that kid's genotype is going to make them have what kind of eyelashes? Well, if you go up here, dominant is short. So they're going to have short eyelashes. Okay. But if you made this a codominant trait, big E for, well, actually, we should probably make them long and then short. So dominant, long. And then the other codominant trait is short. So if we bred these together, they would make somebody who has a long allele and a short allele. And if you drew their eyelashes out, they might have some that are really long. They might also have some little ones in there as well, intermixed. So different sizes of eyelashes. Creepy eye. All right. So one more example if you're needing it. Okay. Flowers. Let's say that we've got flowers that have petals that are all completely dark purple. All right. I'm going to use black because that's what I got in my hand right now. We'll say purple is dominant. And then we'll say that the white allele is recessive. Whoops, having trouble with my spelling today. All right, so if we took a purebred purple flower and we bred it together with a purebred white flower, offspring would be big P, little p. and they would look like a flower that has what color petals? All purple. I'll color these in. Every single one of them is going to be purple. All right. Every single one of them will be a purple flower. But if, again, this becomes a codominant trait, then we would have purple and we would have a white individual. Okay. Breed them together. They'll have a purple and a white allele for the offspring. And what's that offspring going to look like? Take a quick second to predict. All right. It's going to have some alleles that are white, and it's going to have some alleles that are completely purple. Or alternatively, you could have situations where like it's got it's got purple and white polka dots all over it, or maybe the petals are striped white and purple. There's a lot of different possibilities there. So the big ideas that you should have gotten out of this are codominant, both traits, two traits or more, show up at the same time. They're fully expressed. One of them isn't covered up or anything like that. We have a slightly different way to write the alleles this time. And then the big idea out of this is you should be able to look at something that's codominant, and you should be able to tell that it is codominant if you see the heterozygous individual. And you should be able to tell what its genotype is, because when you look at it, there's 3 genotypes and there are 3 phenotypes. So email questions if you have them about codominance. And then next video, we're going to take a look at how do you do a codominant Punnett square. Okay. See you guys later.